Hello fellow circuit explorers! In this Circuits of the Past video we'll show you 7 abandoned racetracks that you can visit legally. You can download the information in this video also as an ebook, but more about that later in the video. Opel Test Track. The old Opel Test Track, officially named Opel-Rennbahn, opened in 1920 as a test facility of the Opel factory in Rüsselsheim, Germany. It was an oval track inspired by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Soon they saw the commercial potential of the track and started to organise races there during the weekends. For these occasions they built 5 grandstands around the circuit, which could accommodate up to 50,000 spectators. Besides motor racing, the large proving ground also was used for markets, exhibitions and performances of Opel's own music chapel. But when in 1927 the Nürburgring opened, and then in 1932 the Hockenheimring opened, the Opel-Rennbahn got tough competition from modern circuits. In the 1930s less races were organised, and when World War II broke out in 1939, motor racing stopped there completely. After the war, the Opel Test Track was used by the American Army to test military vehicles, but in 1949 the track closed and was left abandoned. In 1987, the abandoned circuit got the status of a monument of industry and technologies. Today, a part of the overgrown track is cleared and equipped with an observation platform. Motodrom Gelsenkirchen. Motodrom Gelsenkirchen was a 0.466 mile short club circuit in the west of Germany. It opened in 1969 as a gravel track and then became asphalt in 1977. The track was used for amateur stock car racing. Whilst it was a road circuit, in a way it had some characteristics of a quarter-mile oval. Just like an oval, it was driven anti-clockwise with 2 parallel straights, but the straights of the Motodrom Gelsenkirchen were longer and contained several left and right kinks. Officially, the name was Motodrom Gelsenkirchen, but the locals called it Almaring. Alma was the name of the cooking plant that was on the site, and Ring is German for circuit. So it was actually nicknamed the Alma Circuit. However, in the early 80s, the Almaring gained opposition from environmentalists and local residents who complained about the noise. That led to the closure of the track after the 1984 season, and since then, the track has been left abandoned. But while most abandoned tracks are illegal to enter, this one can be visited legally. The site is now a park, and the overgrown track is now an asphalt path through the woods. The old Hockenheimring. The old Hockenheimring was a circuit that opened in 1932 as a street circuit, which was driven anti-clockwise. Because of its triangular shape, it was named, and I'm going to get this horribly wrong and butcher it, Reims-Gueux, which is German, but not the way how I said it, for triangular track. Herman, you may need to step in here, mate.
Reims-Gueux.
Many sources claim Hockenheim was originally built as a Mercedes test track, but this is simply not true. In 1938, Hockenheim was modified and became its famous wing shape with the Ost curve. However, the driving direction was still anti-clockwise at this time. In 1964, the section through the village of Hockenheim was replaced by the Motodrom. That was when Hockenheim became a permanent racetrack and the driving direction switched to being clockwise. Today this version is seen by fans as Old Hockenheim, but it was actually already the 3rd iteration of the track. Through the years, chicanes were built through the fast sections through the woods to improve safety. When the Nürburgring was no longer found suitable for Formula 1, the German Grand Prix moved to Hockenheim in the 1970s. For 2002's Grand Prix, there was a controversial reconstruction. The fast section through the woods, the most typical and recognisable part of Hockenheim, was abandoned and replaced by a compact section designed by Hermann Tilke. Most people incorrectly think that it was Bernie Ecclestone and the FIA who required the reconstruction, but it was actually the initiative that came from the circuit boss himself. To compensate the felled trees for the reconstruction, the abandoned section was demolished to plant new trees. But in the woods, you can still find some remains of the old track, like this old service road near the Jim Clark chicane. And this is where the Jim Clark chicane was. Here was the famous Oost curve. You can still recognise exactly where the grandstands used to be. All that's left from Old Hockenheim is this single straight from the Oost curve to the Senna chicane. Nürburgring Südschleife. The Südschleife is an abandoned part of the Nürburgring. Südschleife is German for Southern Loop. The abandoned southern loop of the Nürburgring can be seen as the forgotten part of this iconic racetrack in Germany. When the Nürburgring opened in 1927, the complex included the famous 14.7 mile long Northern Loop, which we all know by the German name Nordschleife, a 1.4 mile start-finish loop, and a 4.8 mile long Südschleife. While the prestigious Northern Loop was used for international races, like the German Formula One Grand Prix, the Südschleife was used for national events. After 1975, the Südschleife became disused, and when the Nürburgring lost the German Grand Prix after the terrible crash from Niki Lauda in 1976, plans were made to modernise the Nürburgring. The main victim of the modernisation was the old Südschleife. To build the new Grand Prix circuit, they demolished the old start-finish loop and the northern part of the Südschleife. Today, the eastern part of the old Südschleife is a public road, but most of the western part is actually still there. A part is left abandoned, whilst another part is used as an entrance road to the parking. Circuit Reims-Gueux. The circuit of Reims-Gueux is probably the most famous circuit ruin in the world. The Reims-Gueux circuit was operational from 1926 through to 1972. It was a street circuit, but it hosted and housed permanent pit and grandstand facilities. Reims-Gueux hosted the Formula One races and 12 hours of go. Originally the circuit ran through the village of Gueux, but in 1952 a new connection cut off that section, and in 1953 the track was extended. For more information about all the different layouts of the circuit, I strongly recommend taking a look at the video Reims-Gueux Circuit, All Layouts. When Formula One abandoned the circuit after the 1966 French Grand Prix, the track became outdated and was only used for national races. After the last race in 1972, they actually wanted to demolish the whole thing, including all of the buildings. But a new mayor stopped the demolition, and the buildings were left for nature to take over for the next few decades. There were already plans to restart the demolition and build houses on the site instead, but the foundation, Les Amis de Circuit de Gueux, or the Friends of the Circuit of Gueux, managed to prevent that. They got permission to restore the buildings back to their original glory and guarantee that nothing would be demolished in future. This foundation does a fantastic job to preserve this piece of motorsport history. Old Monza. The Monza circuit opened in 1922 as a combination of a high-speed banked oval and a road circuit. Both could be used together or separately. The length of the combined circuit was exactly 10 kilometres, which equates to 6.2 miles. During a huge reconstruction of the circuit that started in 1938, the original banking was demolished. The idea was to make Monza a pure road circuit. However, in the 1950s, the circuit bosses wanted to return back to its original concept of a combination of road circuit and high-banked oval. In 1955, the new Monza layout opened again with a new oval, almost exactly on the same site as the original. To give the circuit also the exact length of 10 kilometres again, they introduced the famous parabolica corner. The combination of the road circuit and the oval was only used 3 times for Formula 1 Italian Grand Prix. They were in 1956, 1960 and 1961. The Monza banking became most famous afterwards when it was used for the 1966 Formula 1 movie Grand Prix. After Formula 1 abandoned the Monza banking, it was also declared too dangerous for other racing series too. The last time the full circuit was used was in the 1969 edition of the 1,000 kilometres of Monza. Since then, the old high-banked oval has been left abandoned. Since 1978, the old Monza oval has been used once a year for the Monza Rally, but it only uses the lowest part of the banking. The rest of the year it's just a memory from the past, which can be explored legally. Next to the banking is also the old Pirelli track, a test track that was built in 1938 but never used for its actual purpose. The only remaining corner still has its original surface. Brooklands. Brooklands opened in 1907 and is seen as the first purpose-built racing venue ever. However, the Aussies also like to claim that they have the first purpose-built racetrack too, called Aspendale Racecourse. Because racing on public roads was banned in Britain, they decided to build a permanent racetrack in Weybridge, near London. Today there are a few places where you can legally visit the remains of the Brooklands circuit. You can also visit the Brooklands Museum, which contains the remains of the members' banking, a part of the finishing straight, and the test hill. At Mercedes-Benz World, you can visit the old railway straight and parts of the road circuit inside. The old Byfleet banking is private property and therefore not open to the public. But from a public road, you can still see the section. Do you want to visit one of these circuits? Then you can download the free ebook full of information and travel directions to all the circuits in this video. You can find it on the website www.circuitsofthepast.com. There's also a direct link at the end card of this video. For now though, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and click on that notification bell so that you don't miss out on the next video from another bygone racing circuit from the past, explored legally, or if you're Herman, illegally. Bye for now.